Hi, thank you for watching this week's Hamara Kanoon video. Today we are discussing a very important right. We're talking about Right to Information Act 2005. Now first, it's befitting to mention that this act came into being after a lot of struggle by human rights activists in India. They kept fighting tooth and nail that until right to information becomes a part of Indian law, Indian citizens will not feel empowered to take on the governments. The first thing that's required to enforce one's right is adequate information. And that in fact is the very basis of a democracy, where the public authorities of the government does not hold any information in their own private power. They hold it as trustees of people, as trustees of public, and therefore public or people should be able to access this information as and when required. So what does this act provide for? Well, first it says that all or any information that is with the public authorities should be accessible to citizens of this country. So the first question is, who can access this information? Well, any citizen of India has a right to exercise their right and ask for information from government authorities or public authorities under the Right to Information Act. Which or who are the authorities who are legally required to disclose information? Well, every government department in India, no matter what level it is required to set up at their department level an individual called a PIO or a Public Information Officer. So for example, if I want to find out any information pertaining to any one particular government department, I can file an RTI application before such PIO, and it is a legal duty of this Public Information Officer to respond to my application and give me the required information within 30 days of the receipt of my application. For any reason, if the PIO rejects my application and I'm dissatisfied with such rejection, or if I think the PIO has only provided me insufficient or incomplete information, I have a right to file an appeal, what's called a first appeal, before a State Information Commission, and I have 30 days time from the order made by the PIO and from the date of receipt that I receive such information from the PIO. Within 30 days of my receiving such an order or information about it, I can file an appeal before the State Information Commission. Now, the State Information Commission will again take its time, 30 days to respond to my application. If I'm still dissatisfied, I have another legal option, which is to file a second appeal before a National Information Commission. So the scheme or the structure is such that every government department has to have a PIO or a Public Information Officer, with every state having a State Information Commission, and there should be one National Information Commission, which is for all India level. Now, what is a format for this information? Well, that's the most important thing and the beauty of RTI. It doesn't necessarily have to be in any particular format. As long as you give the bare essentials which are required for an RTI application, it could be on a plain white paper, it could be in the form of an email, and ideally it should be in a certain prescribed format, which is on the government's website. The government's website for RTI is rtionline.gov.in. Now, what are these bare essentials that have to be part of an RTI application? Well, to begin with, it has to have your name and address, who is the person seeking the information, who is the information sought from, what is the information that is sought. It also has to have a time frame. Are you asking for information for a particular time frame? It has to have your signature to show that you are actually the individual who is asking for the information, to verify your credentials, and it has to have any evidence of you having paid the minimum fee. Now, usually there's a minimal fee of ₹10. You have to pay it either by cash if you're handing over the application in person. You can also pay it through electronic means if that's an option available at the government department, or you can pay it through a banker's check or through a DD or through an Indian postal order. You have to attach with your RTI an evidence that this minimal fee ₹10 has been paid. If you do not pay the fee, the PIO is absolutely right to return the application. Now, sometimes it may happen that the PIO may realize that he needs more money to process your application. Let's say you ask for certified copies of a lot of things. It will take some expenditure to get you certified copies. So the PIO can measure up, can tell you that you need to pay an additional fee of so-and-so, and only on the payment of so-and-so extra fees will the information be given to you. Again, it would be your option. If you pay that extra fee, then the information will be given to you. What information can be denied under the RTI? Well, If it is one of the information that is listed under the RTI Act as an information that will not be disclosed to you, then the PIO can reject that information. Primarily any information which has anything to do with the security of the country or with intelligence services, anything that puts the security of a country at risk can be denied to you. If it's an information that the government has received from a third party, then the government or the PIO on government's behalf cannot give you that information unless it has first sought permission from a third party. Or if it's an information which is really an opinion of the government or an interpretation, not fact-based, then again the PIO will be right to reject your application. So the idea or the recipe behind a successful RTI application is keeping it short. Ideally, it's prescribed it should be around 500 words. It should be simple, it should be crisp, it should be specific. What exact information are you asking for what time frame, and why do you think this government department should have that information? If it is an information that pertains to violation of human rights, then you should definitely mention it, because such applications clearly gets a priority, and if it's pertaining to human rights, then the PIO or the government cannot deny it on any ground whatsoever. Now you will receive this information within 30 days. If you don't hear back from them, or if you get incomplete information, as I told you, you can then file your application before the State Information Commission. You can ask for certified copies, floppies, discs, cassettes. You can even ask for notings of the government officers on any file. So any policy decision, any circular, any action, all of this can be asked under RTI. A few points to remember. See, under RTI, individuals are not pitched against government officers. We're asking information from the government officers. So we should not treat it as a tool against the government. We should treat it as a tool to get the information that we require to be informed citizens. What we do with this information is, of course, entirely up to us. We can use it to file a PIL, or to file a case, to file an application or a complaint, so on and so forth. But RTI should be used purely as a tool to collect information. The reason I mention this is because since the year has been past 2005, there are two kinds of observations that have been made. One, there is very limited population in India still who's actually using RTI. Either people are too scared of it, they think they need a lawyer for it, and the whole purpose behind this video is to tell you how simple it is to file RTI. So you can do it very simply, in a very simple format, at the payment of a very simple fee. So that should make you feel empowered. And the second thing to note is that some people are also abusing RTI. See, we have to understand that our government officers are overworked, they have a lot going on, and therefore they're not sitting there merely to give us information. So asking for false or vexatious information, sending them too long RTIs, not mentioning specifically what is it that you're asking for, this all results in wastage of the time of the government, which actually is our own public time. Therefore, please keep your application short, crisp and simple, and ask questions which are specific. I hope this video encourages you to consider filing RTI and getting the information that you need to make sure that you're acting as informed citizens of Indian democracy. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, kindly share it with your friends. If you want more similar videos which discuss legal issues in India in a simple format, please subscribe to Hamara Kanoon, and do tell me in the comment box if there are more topics that you would like to hear from me as part of Hamara Kanoon series. Thank you so much for watching. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.